What's going on, mi gente? Just a couple days left until the conmebol qualifiers start. Let's get to it. What's going on, mi gente? Today, I am joined by Peter from the Smoking Snake podcast to talk about Brazil. We're only a few days away from their first game in the qualifiers. What's going on, Peter? How are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing very, very well. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate any time I get to talk to someone as enthusiastic about football as I am, and especially when it comes to Brazil. So thanks again for having me.
It's crazy that, the World Cup just finished like a couple months ago and we're already getting right back into it. I'm excited. I know, a lot of people don't like the international break, but I'm one of those people that thoroughly enjoys it. Just watching my country or just countries in general. I think it's a different type of fanatismo, different type of fanatic, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. Brazil, they finished in first place last campaign, undefeated. How can they realistically do any better than that?
Well, I think the short answer is that they can't, as far as, the table. But I mean, when you look at really what's going on, I think I was listening to some of your previous episodes with Roberto and Tim Vickery. And one of them said it the best. I mean, there's no real prize for finishing first, right? You just want to qualify. So I think what Brazil are mostly concerned about now are, doing well in the actual tournament, right? They want to qualify and they want to play good football. We've got a year with the interim coach before hopefully Ancelotti signs the deal and becomes, the long-term option as manager. So I think that people are very happy, when the team does well. Everyone wants to win all the time. But as we saw last time with the qualification process, they came top of the pile, and in the World Cup, they fell short. And, it cost a lot of people their reputation, and a lot of fans were extremely disappointed and really left heartbroken over a game that you'd think, at least on paper, that should be a Brazil win.
Do you think that having Fernando Diniz as the coach for 1 year is kind of just like, I don't want to say a waste of time, but essentially a waste of time in the sense that you could be building on something?
Yeah, so I think the selection of Fernando Diniz was very intentional, right? He plays this style of football that's kind of in vogue and seen as the way forward for Brazil, who's kind of resisted the Europeanization of football. They're not. It's very divisive, but one school of thought in Brazil was to resist this sort of positional game that's so common amongst the European elite. Fernando Diniz is an ice pick to the face of that position, the game of possession or positioning. He plays a very similar style to Carlo Ancelotti. So the thought process being that we can kind of still build that base with Diniz, and when his year is up, it shouldn't be that much of a transition to Ancelotti, right? And furthermore, it's thought that this sort of relationism, as it's called, should be more conducive to kind of the overall culture of and footballing style of the Brazilian players. And they've fallen short recently, and this is kind of the next thing that they're going to try. So I don't know if it's a waste of time. Ideally, right, you'd want to have your long-term manager build it from the ground up. But since they're so set on Ancelotti, there aren't a lot of great Brazilian options. I think this is the least worst option. And I'm actually kind of optimistic that it might be crazy enough to work.
No, I mean, that's fair enough, I guess, right? I agree with you in the sense that I haven't seen a Brazilian coach, at least, that I would say, this is the one that should be it. I always thought it was going to be a bigger name. And I mean, as you said, Ancelotti's not signed yet, but if he is, I think it's a great get.
Yes.
Last campaign, 40 goals for, 5 against, if I remember correctly. They start off without Militao, which I think is a big name to miss out, on top of the fact that you're missing Neymar, Vinicius Jr., and now Anthony. Um, what would you say about those big names missing out on the first two games?
Well, I mean, Vinicius is going to be a huge loss. He's such a driving force in most of the attacking moves, right? And for club and country, right? I mean, this guy, I had picked him to kind of have a breakout tournament. Not to say that he was like the previous World Cup, I thought he was going to win the best player of the tournament. I thought he was going to, absolutely go off. And we didn't really see that. Brazil kind of had a sputtering attack at times. They looked great against like a country like South Korea, but then you saw how much they struggled against Croatia. So that's huge, right? Militao as well. There's kind of I don't want to say a defensive crisis. Some of this is maybe a little bit driven by the media here, but there's long been talk about the fullbacks, right, for Brazil, but the center backs as well, right? You had Thiago Silva, who's kind of aged out. Marquinhos is the steadfast. He's named by Fernando Diniz as being part of the spine of the team. But really, it's who's going to play with him, right? And Militao was the option. Militao is great because he can play right back as well. But losing him, it's tough. And now we have a chance. We've got Fernando Diniz as captain at Fluminense, Nino, who's going to step in, Gabriel from Arsenal, I think, is tapped to get the start against Bolivia. But then you've also got a guy like Roger Ibanez, who was at Roma, was a decent player. I don't know if he's Sal quality, but now he moved to Saudi Arabia, and he gets the call. So kind of an interesting look there. Fernando Diniz trying out some different things, but I mean, all of this is in play, obviously, because of the injuries. And like you said, just today, the news broke, I think officially Antony is going to be out of the lineup. I think he was a questionable call. I have some thoughts on the squad, and it was divisive and controversial for numerous reasons, as we're kind of skipping around here with the talk. And a name that was lost over as well, Lucas Paquetá, another player that may or may not be implicated in a betting scandal. So lots of holes and lots of question marks. I'm happy, there's still a lot of shuffling, I think, that needs to take place. The center forwards are huge question marks. Maybe Gabriel Jesus will fit in with the team this time. He, of course, is under a lot of pressure. He didn't score in the World Cup, first Brazilian number 9 not to do it. He represents Antony. So, yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not sure totally. I think Neymar, though, should be, I think Diniz confirmed he was out. He rested for the Saudi team, Al Hilal. But I think the plan is they might ease him in. He's traveling with the squad in Belém right now. So I think you might see him on the pitch. But he's obviously not going to be at 100%. And, so there's some holes in the squad. I think this squad is good enough to get 2 wins over the teams that they face, especially with the home field advantage in one of them. But yeah, I mean, I think this is forcing Diniz to make some choices up front, and that could influence some of the decisions down the line. Militao, again, is the one for me that stands out with the biggest gaping hole, and Paquetá behind him.
Fair enough. I think I agree with you, and it's totally spaced on Paquetá. I think that is a big miss as well. As you mentioned, first 2 games against Bolivia and Peru should be on paper easy wins for Brazil. What names would you like to see kind of enter the fold into these games under Fernando Diniz?
Well, one off the bat, he is another injured player that we didn't bring up just now, but I want to shout out Bento, the goalkeeper from Atlético Paranaense. Lights out season, past 2 seasons for Atlético. They were in the Copa Libertadores final last year. He's been incredible. He's very much in the mold of Alisson and Ederson. Great with his hands and great with his feet, right? Got injured, unfortunately. But Brazil right now, especially the domestic league, has lots of goalkeepers that can step up. And Lucas Perry, the keeper for the first place Botafogo right now, is replacing him. Likely in these games he'll be the third choice, but I would like to see him on the pitch at some point, because he's really promising. And I think, as Allison and Ederson age, I think that he could possibly step in and fill their boots, so to speak. Apart from that, a name that I'm really excited to see in the senior Seleção is Andre. Again, we talked about Nino. This is another player from Fernando Diniz's Fluminense, who has been, again, lights out this year in the Brasileirão, in the Copa Libertadores. He just scored recently against Olympia to get Fluminense to the semifinal. And he's been highly touted really since the start of the season, as kind of the next big thing in Brazilian central defensive midfielders, I should say. And he can just do it all. And he's young, but he's so composed on the ball. And I'm just so excited to see him in that yellow shirt and the blue shorts. It's going to be, I'm really high hopes for the kid. Apart from that, I mean, I'm interested to see this fullback pairing, Caio Henrique and Wanderson. Again, I kind of referenced it. It's no secret that Brazil has struggled with the picking of the fullbacks. How offensive do you want them? Do you want them defensively? So I'm interested to see how they're going to do. Wanderson stood out at Grêmio. Caio Henrique left Brazil a little earlier, but apparently has been playing very well at Monaco. Maybe more of a streak player. But I'm excited to see what they can do on the pitch. And those were the kind of the names that I would have my eye on. I would love to say Vitor Roque, but he's in the pre-Olympic qualifiers. So he's missing out. And same with Andre Santos, right? The Chelsea sign that he's now on loan at Forest. But yeah, so some names to look out for. But this isn't a complete refresh of the squad, and you've got a lot of names and some question marks for some of these other calls, like Mateus Cunha, the striker, that I think maybe we could have seen a more exciting player, or a player that maybe deserved the call up a little bit more. Although Cunha, I think, scored today, and not today, this weekend, but he's been doing pretty well. So maybe Diniz knows something we don't.
It's crazy to me when you mention some of these names like Vitor Roque and Andre Silva.
Yeah.
Like these are players that are already exciting at such a young age, and that Brazil have. Like they always have these B squads or C squads that can be A squads in almost any other team. Apart from that, I think it's a very big thing that you mentioned the fullbacks, right? We're used to the Cafus, Roberto Carlos, Dani Alves, Marcelo, and now you don't really have those legendary names. Skipping ahead to like 2026, where do you see this Brazil ending up in the standings for conmebol?
I mean, listen, I think for the foreseeable future, they will be 1 and 2, right? With Argentina. You could maybe, I used to think, maybe this is wishful thinking, that Argentina may be falling from grace, but I don't think that's the case anymore, especially after 2022. I don't think that'd be wise to bet against them, but I think they're always going to be up there, right? And then you might have a third spot of that sort of elite tier in South America that might rotate. I like a lot of stuff that I see from Ecuador. I like, of course, Uruguay's always got, talent, but I don't see the depth and consistency of any other nations kind of approaching those top 2. So for 2026, I mean, you'd expect Brazil to be 1 or 2. And I think just with some of the, the refresh and the issues maybe with Neymar and coaching, and all the drama that I theoretically could ensue, I was asked recently to make a prediction of how these qualifiers might end up. And again, who knows, right? At this point, I don't need to tell you or anyone listening that South America always has a trick up its sleeve. But, I had them at second. And I think that they are always going to be a threat. And at their best, they can beat anyone in the world. But, recently it's been a struggle, and it's really we're gonna have to see under Fernando Diniz and Ancelotti after him how well they're getting on, because this style of play, of course, has been very it's been successful in South America so far with numerous coaches and in Europe as well, but against the elite I'm not sure that it's been proven, and we're gonna have to we'll see how well they get on.
Yes, yes. You know what? Yeah, I mean, I don't remember who mentioned it. I think maybe it was Tite back a couple years ago when he said that he wanted more games against European opponents.
Yes.
And I mean, yeah, should they be focusing more on the friendlies? That's the thing. Nowadays, the schedules of how many games you play with your national team, it's Europe has the UEFA Nations League now, and then the qualifiers, and we have Copa America and the qualifiers. It's so tough. But Brazil, I guess it's crazy because you mentioned Brazil and Argentina, and I agree with you 100%. They're 1-2, whichever way you want to put it. They're 1-2. But then after that, yes, there are some teams that stand out, like Uruguay is going through I think a nice spell, and now with Marcelo Bielsa can do something there. Ecuador's got some talent, but they're starting with -3 points. That may hurt them, or not really, but they're not going to be top 3 because of that, maybe. Colombia's always got talent on paper, but you've already seen last campaign they went 7 matches without scoring, and then Peru, Chile, Paraguay are all going through their own thing. So it's that middle of the pack is always what's interesting, and I think what keeps this region of conmebol so interesting and so dramatic at the end of the day. If I had to pressure you to tell me how you think these standings are gonna finish at the end of the day, would you be able to? Would you be able to?
Yeah, I mean, so I would be able to.
Yeah.
And again, some of this is just I just had in a group chat I'm in, someone recently was pressuring me to get a ranking here.
We're doing it here. We're doing it
live. Okay, all right. Just for continuity's sake, I'm gonna have to pull it up, because
go ahead.
I don't want to have this be boring here, but
of course.
Let me take a look at this here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had Argentina first, and Brazil second.
Very fair.
Uruguay was 3, I believe, and then I put Ecuador 4. I really like Ecuador, and I think some of their players are incredibly exciting.
Yes.
Although this group chat I'm in does have a slight Ecuadorian bias, and that shout out to Martin Benitez of Warriors of Ecuador. But let me see if I can dig this out, because I kind of the rest of it, like you said, I mean, the top teams can shake out that way, and then the midsection, especially with Ecuador on the -3 points, which I had forgotten, and I had to make a last minute selection here. All right, here we go. I've got Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Ecuador, Paraguay, Colombia, Chile, Venezuela, Peru, and then Bolivia. So that's my thinking. We can go into more of what I was thinking. I was pressured to take a look at that, but I do think that Ecuador and Paraguay, I think, are going to impress more than they're going to disappoint. Colombia, like you said, I was so taken aback by their lack of scoring recently, and it's like you said, they're so good on paper, and you see these names, and you're questioning why aren't they consistently number 3 or 4, and maybe even challenging for the second spot if the top 2 slip. But they just haven't been able to put it together on the field, and I don't really know what to say about them. It's unfortunate, because I like, despite wanting Brazil to win everything, I like the competition. I think everyone it helps everyone when everyone is successful. In Colombia, I'd love to see competitive. And then the bottom four, and I know you're a Peruvian guy, so
No worries.
but they don't excite me as much as they once did. And you know, I have some thoughts on Christian Cuevas. I'm sure you do as well. And I don't I don't understand his success for the national team, but it's an older story. But anyways, yeah. So that's how I do it. Again, to reiterate: Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Ecuador, Paraguay, Colombia, Chile, Venezuela, Peru, Bolivia.
Okay. I mean, we will look back on this when the time
Yeah,
comes
and you'll call
for
me out.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I agree with what you said about Peru. I think that you know, out of maybe the last 2 or 3 campaigns, this is one of the teams that doesn't excite me as much. I hate to say it as a Peruvian, but it just, I don't know. There's something about the staff, the coaching, this maybe even the squad. It needs change, and we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting though. Thursday's coming around the corner.
Yes.
But I want to thank you again, Peter. I want to give you this last minute to, you know, let the people know where they can find you, where they can find your work, and so that they can follow you.
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you so much. I really appreciate the chance, Diego. Again, like I said at the top of the episode, to talk, and I appreciate you thinking of me. If you want to follow me, I tweet about Santos. I'm a Santos supporter. I run the unofficial Santos English account for the last almost 5 years now. So you can follow me at Santos FC _ Inglés. And then I also am the co-host of the Smoking Snake podcast. I host it with my friend Enric, and you can follow and listen. Apple, Spotify, wherever you want to find us. And we cover all things Brazilian football, but mostly the Brasileirão, Serie A at least, Copa do Brasil, Copa Libertadores, Sudamericana, and then of course the Seleção. So you can follow me and keep up with me there. But yeah, other than that, again, Diego, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Perfect, everyone. You guys heard it here first. Everything on Brazil right here. We got the other conmebol nations to talk about. So stay tuned. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. We'll see you soon.